So this is some of the brainstorm that we had, and our 3 main points, we wanted to keep it short. So the 3 main points that we thought we learned was that the collaboration with third parties like companies, startups, or even state like governments can be very beneficial. And also something that we really liked, and that was mentioned in the presentation for like this morning's presentation in KU Leuven, was the proximity to big innovation hubs, and like Belgium was mentioned at some point, and we thought that that was a very nice addition, and that we didn't think about. So that's something we learned. And also something mentioned in the GEM presentation was the talent retention. And we believe also that that is something that can completely shift the experience. And then we were comparing our universities. Here you can see IE University, Erasmus University, and UCL. And here we have like some differences, and you can see that some of them are stronger in entrepreneurship than others. But basically, all of them are collaborating with other companies to offer like training programs and foster entrepreneurship among their student bodies, which we find really nice. And also, for example, IE is implementing entrepreneurship in their curriculum, something that us, from the experience we haven't seen in Erasmus and UCL. And also we said that something that we really like from IE is that they have organized these super big conferences that they do once a year. And one example can be South Summit, where they bring all the entrepreneurs and all, technological startups and all these things, which is really, really nice to, put the university out there. And last, we found some similarities and differences. And again, the collaboration with external parties, and also the training programs and the labs that they provide at university. And some differences is that we see more collaboration in the Dutch universities with like the governments in some way. We believe they are more aligned than, for example, UCL and IE. But again, this is just from our experience. And that we see a heavier investment in tech equipment and education from one university or the other. So these are our thoughts, and yeah, would like to hear what you think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noor. And your internet connection was okay for the presentation.
Which is amazing.
That was good. Okay, thank you very much. We will first hear all the presentations, and then we can have like some general thoughts at the end. Let's move on to the second group. And that was the group I was in, I think.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can try to share the screen now. I hope it works.
Yes.
Can everyone see this?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So we cannot brag about fancy design the group one had. We just had the content in terms of the things that we discussed in our respective universities. So in our group, there were students from IE University, including myself, and also one student from the UCL. And some things that we thought of about KU Leuven and Grenoble. It's one thing is their specific research directions, for example, but it's also related to the last point, which is diversity. So it's still more specific. It's like either science or education or things like that, whereas as I'll mention later in IE, it's more diverse in terms of the approach, and it's not as specialized in a way in terms of research. So but we in terms of the things that we learn from the previous presentations, it's the creative measures they have for environmental for the inclusion of the environment in their different projects. For example, in Grenoble, which revolves around the nature around it, in the city and the ecosystem, that an important part of which is their environment. And also we saw a high involvement of students in different research-related projects, which was particularly interesting to us to see how students can be involved in these sort of things, and not necessarily more older people or postgraduate students. So the efforts in providing personalized education, connecting with the industry, were also interesting to note, because it's not a good approach to use the same thing that fits all. It doesn't work anymore. So the new approaches that we discussed today, that the speakers talked about today, were interesting to note. And also the importance of transforming labs and experiments into teaching. So to move on quickly to our universities, we believe that both IE and the UCL do not have as much student engagement when it comes to research-related projects, because it's for us, it's more common to actually just study, but not to work on actual research projects. I do know some people who do this. I'm talking about IE in particular, but I think it's not as much, it's not as common as it could have been. But apart from that, what IE does a bit differently from the two universities at question is that we don't focus on particular things of business opportunities like Grenoble does, but we allow students to just focus on whatever they like, on whatever they want to explore given their background or their interests. Whereas in Grenoble, for instance, we saw that it's more of the impact, it's more of the point of research of a project than just a business opportunity that students want to pursue, which is good and not as good at the same time, because if it's more directed, if it's more specialized, it might lead to greater results in the area and be more known to the outside world. But in our case, it's a bit more, it's just a bit more diverse and not as deep. And IE University is also more metropolitan, I'd say, in a sense that Grenoble and KU Leuven are located in smaller towns, whereas IE does have a campus in Segovia, but the major part of it is still in Madrid, in capital, which makes it differ from the approach to the two universities. And for the UCL, one point that was mentioned is about the IRIS organization that connects students with communities and also enterprises to cooperate with different business solutions and research projects. So the 2 points that we discussed about that at least IE could improve is to include and encourage student engagement in different research-related projects, and also to just make it more interesting and more impactful in a way than it already is, and give students a chance to have more hands-on experience on research-related projects, even though our degrees are not research-specific and research-oriented, such as business administration, for instance, that I'm studying. And also the Segovian campus could be turned into a more research-oriented ecosystem, because it might be similar in terms of the nature of the campus to Grenoble, for instance. But it seems like there is a lot of room for improvement in terms of research that could have been done in our Segovian campus. So that's it from our group. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. That was a good summary, I think, of our discussion as far as I can judge. Can we move on with the third group? I'm not sure who's going to present.
Yeah, that's me. I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay, hold on a second. Just go there. Again, yes, we don't have the fancy graphics of group one. Very well done, whoever did that. Beautifully done in that short time. Okay, so not everybody in our group was there this morning. So we just picked up a few summary items. And I think we really like the approach of KU Leuven, some of the, what they were really trying to tackle about how do you move away from one size fits all learning curriculums, and how do you create, evidence-based learning, to shift from theory to what you're actually doing with that learning. And the, for Ivan, who was in our group, this access about super diverse learning audiences, the accessibility of learning, from passive to active learning, was a big focus of theirs. That personalized learning is still a challenge. So we spoke about, Evelyn spoke about, adaptive learning technology systems, because, certainly qualifications and curriculums do drive a one size fits all model, but there is technology out there to create adaptive learning systems. So we discussed that. Also, what KU Leuven we liked was their collaborative problem solving focus, interactive learning mechanisms. And then Maria Morales was saying in our group, how can we really capture individual learning, the quality of the individual learning experience in a group learning environment. And then we looked at, we just had a few points because that took up quite a bit of time with that. What do our own institutions do? So Maria from IE University was the partnership with Amazon Alexa to make learning more intuitive. And then also the COIL projects for Evelyn based in Antwerp. This is huge. For me in Amsterdam, this is also a lot. Amsterdam University is placing a huge emphasis on COIL. So basically, because of the COVID driving on an online process, which of course has been a huge creator and a shift in behavior. Certainly Amsterdam University was not going digital until they were forced to by COVID. And basically now there's been a big focus on international projects because students want to work with students from different countries and also across disciplines. So how do you create a collaborative online international learning? So this is definitely a big focus. And then also certainly for Amsterdam University that I'm working for, there's a big focus on sustainable innovation design, because Amsterdam is also leading as a circular city. So they are really pushing Amsterdam University to focus on circular economy and to shift away from linear economy studies and sustainable innovation. And that's as far as we got.
Thank you very much, Tony. That was a good reflection. I think there is one more group, Wouter. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And who's going to present the last PowerPoint summary?
Maybe Sophia and I can present our findings.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
So maybe I can start. So thank you everyone for your presentations, like really insightful. In our group, we discussed how in both approaches in KU Leuven and Grenoble, they focused on university collaboration with industries and with other stakeholders. For example, we saw with spin-offs and startups and research centers like IMEC and other maybe innovation ecosystems to, at the end, create their own ecosystems where like projects could be carried out, which was very, very interesting. And also we saw how they were focused, especially in the case of Grenoble, in like current trends that are really, really relevant. For example, the 2030 agenda with sustainability goals and so on. I don't know if Sophia wants to continue.
Yeah, sure. So one thing we also really appreciated from both of the presentations was that we noticed that both programs allowed for a much more bottom-up decision-making process. So there was a lot of involvement from students and from professors alike that kind of, made this a lot more personal, and hence the bottom-up process. We also really liked that it was very multidisciplinary. Both Alberto and myself are from IE University, so the scope of majors that we have at our school focus a lot more on business and management, but it was cool to see that different universities were able to combine a lot of different majors and use those in a very multidisciplinary aspect. And then one point that Arno from our group made that was really interesting was that this mindset of innovation and education is something that doesn't just happen in 1 year or has only been happening recently. It's something that in both of the programs we see has been growing through the history of the school. Alberto, if you want to start.
Yeah, so when it comes to entrepreneurship regarding to our institutions, from KU Leuven, we had Arno, and he told us about this program, which is called KIC, which is basically a startup incubator for students. Similarly, at IE, we have the IE Venture Lab, or like the IE Business Plan Challenge for students to try to develop different business ideas. And in UCL, we found this program, which is called Educate, and where you have to connect EdTech companies with research evidence to inform about the design of these new technologies. Also, we found that at IE, for example, we have projects integrated in our curriculum, and in all three institutions, there was a real connection with the real world, especially with startups and entrepreneurs. And finally, to conclude with this slide, we found that in all three institutions, entrepreneurship is embedded in the culture, right? And that's something that aligns all stakeholders at the institution and make them be like-minded.
Yeah, and then lastly, looking at some of the similarities and differences, we kind of touched on it, but one of the biggest similarities would be that all three schools do offer programs for students to develop their own business ideas. So like for IE, example, that's our venture creation lab, where students can pitch to investors and really have that opportunity to grow their business whilst still in university. And then one of the biggest differences, like we had mentioned before, is that UCL and Leuven, in our eyes, definitely have a lot more chances to do research projects, again, because these are more traditional universities that have been around for a bit longer, in comparison to places like Grenoble or IE, where we are still growing. And so those traditional type of university offers might not be available. And yeah, that was our presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think we've had them all now. That's correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And it's 4 o'clock, so we should sort of finish this session. But I will not let you go before I have given my summary of what I heard from the presentations, and what was striking to you, and what I think that indeed were good messages that we would have liked to bring to you and that you picked up very well. I think in many of the presentations, we've seen again the word collaboration as an important word. I've heard today also 2 new words that for myself are important. Collaboration could also include co-experimentation, co-development. So where the university with the corporate world, with society, with governments are working together, where students and teachers and entrepreneurs are working together, and working could mean researching, could mean learning, could mean really making things, producing things, and so on, creating things. So collaboration is one of the main messages I think we've heard today. We've heard a lot about let's call it competences or talent. That there was interdisciplinarity mentioned, multidisciplinarity mentioned. There was super diversity as an aspect of these talent story. Let's say the international component is also important. So the talent base or the skill base includes that interdisciplinary approach, includes that super diversity aspect, includes internationalization as well. I think I've also heard a couple of times saying that the involvement of students was also something that you picked up. Some of you called it bottom-up approaches. Yeah, but I think you don't have a university without students. So whatever you do in a university, it always should start with the students. When it is about teaching and learning, yes, of course, but also when it comes to research, I think the students are playing a very important role in there as well. And so I think that that was also a very nice message that you picked up. And talking about students and talking about learning, I think another aspect that was mentioned quite a few times today and also in your summaries is the personalized aspect, of learning. The individual learning, yes, and the personalized aspect of it, but never forgetting that this is also in a sort of group environment. Collaborative learning as well is important. So it's at the one hand individual, but at the other hand, it's also collaborative. And in the middle, you have something like personalized teaching and learning. And personalized with respect to active learning, with respect to adaptive learning, and so on. Technology can help us here as well. And talking about how technology can help, some of the summaries also mentioned the different labs that we have seen, the new labs, rather than the very traditional lab settings where we do experiments. That is now done in a totally different way, made possible thanks to the educational technology. And we talked about experience learning. We talked about experience labs. So that was, and what other word was used? I think immersive labs is another aspect. So I think that this was also a nice idea that came along different presentations and summaries today. And then the last one that I think was also important to mention is innovation is about a mindset. It's about culture. It's about something that you build up through tradition. And what I forgot to say for those who doesn't know our university, Leuven is the most innovative university in Europe. I keep on saying that, but it's also one of the oldest universities in Europe. We are heading towards our 600th anniversary. The university started in 1425, so in 2025 we are celebrating 600 years of university. Having that tradition, having that history, having that background, and still being the most innovative university of Leuven, I think that is a very nice way of how should I say, of balancing what we learn from the past, how we can apply that into the future. And here I would like to end my couple of things that I've learned today and that I would take away from myself. I think that we come now to the end of the day. I thank you all for participating in the listening to the presentations and asking questions, and also in the discussion and the reflection part this afternoon.